G'day virtual pilots, it's Requiem. In today's video we're going to have a look at the Spitfire Mk.XIV. So we're going to start off. Now going down to the left side of the cockpit. You've got our navigation lights. You can turn those on and off. Got a pitot heat, the gun camera heat, and the fuel boost pump. Above that is your rudder trim. So starboard's going to go to right rudder and port will be left rudder. Then you got some test buttons. You got your fuel boost pump test button, the supercharger test button, your radiator flap test button, which you can extend in an emergency if you really had to, and an oil dilution button. Up above, this is your gun camera footage indicator, and underneath that are your bomb fusing and bomb master switches. Then we've got your elevator trim wheel. You can see nose up and nose down. And looking at the trim indicator, this position where the needle's pointing, that's your neutral elevator trim position. Just near the trim is your carburetor air intake control, and then the red cock there, that's your fuel transfer selector. Coming up, we don't have mixture in this, so we've got the fuel cutoff control. You've got a bomb release button, which is actually on the throttle itself. And under that is your propeller control, which will regulate your RPM. Up here is your radio. And you've got the gun sight. I've got the reflector sight here. And on this sight you can adjust the range and the wingspan of the aircraft. This can be changed with a gyroscopic sight if you would rather use that. There's the flap control. Oxygen regulator. Clock, the undercarriage position indicator, and under that is a position indicator for your tail wheel. Magnetos are on the left, and a master switch which controls the lighting for the undercarriage indicator. Under that you got your brake pressure indicator, an elevator trim indicator we talked about before. On the main panel, there's your airspeed indicator in miles an hour, the artificial horizon, vertical speed indicator, altimeter, directional gyro, and the turn and slip indicator. At the bottom here you've got your cockpit lighting, and to the right of that is a magnetic compass, the engine start button, and then the fuel cock control. There's the voltmeter, the generator switch, tachometer. There's your supercharger. Now I've selected 150 octane, so you have to control the supercharger manually in this case. Otherwise, it's automatically managed. There's your boost indicator. The oil pressure gauge, oil temperature gauge, and the coolant temperature gauge. Got a fuel pressure warning light, and there's your fuel gauge, the starter breach relay control, as well as the formation light signal switch box, the priming pump, the beam approach switch, which would be for instrument approaches. Just trying to get in position, see this a little better. These are your engine limitations on a placard if you needed them in flight. There's the cylinder priming selector, undercarriage control, and the fuel drop tank cock control, windshield de-icing switch. You've got your IFF switches, remote contactor, which we know is the pipsqueak, and the fuel tank pressure control, as well as the oxygen supply control. So when we're looking to start the Spitfire Mk.XIV, all we need to do is just crack the throttle about half an inch, set your propeller to maximum, and mix is automatic, so all we need to do is just press E to start the engine, and the sequence is going to get going by itself. For now though, you can have a look at the pilot's notes for the Spitfire Mk.XIV. So with the engine started, we can look at how to taxi the Mark 14, and it has a Griffin engine in it. And what this means is that it's going to be rotating counterclockwise, unlike in the other Spitfires where they rotate clockwise. So this means that while taxiing and in the air, you're going to need a lot of left rudder and not right rudder, because of the right turning tendencies that are created by this counterclockwise rotating engine. So as we add some power and begin to taxi, we're going to use some left rudder to stay straight initially. We need a bit more left rudder and brake in order to make this initial turn. And then we'll let's turn along the taxiway and we'll look at how to take off in the Spitfire Mark 14. So for taking off in the Mark 14, the rudder trim is going to be set to fully left or to port, elevator trim will be neutral, propeller is going to be maximum, flaps will be up, and the supercharger we just want to see the red light out, regardless of whether you're 150 octane or not. For the takeoff technique, we're going to increase about 9 pounds of boost, we'll rotate about 110, 120 mile an hour, and the best climb is going to be 180 miles an hour. So as we come to a stop, we're going to leave the canopy open until we're in the air. So coming down to the rudder trim, get that all the way to the left, so it'll counteract that torque. Elevator trim, just verify that's in the neutral position on that division there, which is good. Propeller, remember we want to have that all the way to maximum. Flaps are up, and the red light's out on the supercharger, so we're good to go. So we're going to slowly start increasing our power, bringing it up to plus 9 pounds of boost initially. Using that left rudder to keep the airplane straight. Now the nose is going to want to drop on its own. So as it drops, a little bit of brake pressure and just keep the nose above the horizon. And then once we reach about 110, 120 miles an hour, the airplane's going to lift off. And bring the landing gear up. Pitch it up to about 180 miles an hour and begin to climb. We're going to get the canopy closed before we start flying too quickly, otherwise we won't be able to close it. And this thing climbs really quickly as well, so if you wanted to set your max continuous power setting, you can do that. Be 2,400 RPM and plus 7 pounds of boost. We're at an altitude, so we'll make the left turn and look at how to land the Spitfire Mark 14. So we want to get our airspeed to 160 miles an hour, and then we'll open the canopy, we'll set the propeller to maximum, and the supercharger, the red light should be out. By the end of downwind, we'll extend the landing gear and then the flaps, and the basic final turn will make it about 110 miles an hour. So right now I'm at 2,400 RPM to slow the airplane down, at a lower power setting as well, just above the gear warning horn. That would get us to about our 160, so we can open the canopy. We're just on the left downwind here, so once we get a beam out touchdown point, which is coming up in a few seconds, we're going to extend the landing gear. So we get it out now. Start our base to final turn. It's down on locks so we can get the flaps out as well. I don't recommend doing a power idle turn here because you can have a very high sink rate. So just maintain a little bit of power in. You can be between 110 and 120 miles an hour in this turn, that's perfectly fine. Just do recommend you do keep some power in because it's going to be very hard to control your vertical rate as you start coming in closer to the runway. So like usual, we're just adjusting our turn. We're trying to picture where our aiming point is at the beginning of the runway. Get ourselves wing level here. Start raising the nose a bit, trying to rest that vertical speed. Get into a 3-point position and cut the power and touch down. As you touch down, you can apply a full braking with full back pressure on the stick. Use those rudder pedals to keep yourself straight or else you'll be at risk of ground looping. Now that's not a technique I'd recommend in real life, this is just something that you need to do in the sim because the brakes aren't quite strong enough right now. But that'll pretty much cover the basics of how to fly the Mark 14. So until next time, remember to fly safe and check 6.